In the shadow of betrayal by the very children they adopted and cherished across racial divides, Clara and Thomas Whitfield vanished into obscurity with only a faltering truck and a cherished Bible, unaware that from their ruins would rise a sanctuary defying all odds. Clara and Thomas Whitfield, once the heart of a vibrant multiracial family, they built through years of selfless adoption and love that bridged divides, now stood forsaken with little more than a sputtering old pickup and a weathered Bible that had seen them through every storm. The rain pounded relentlessly that afternoon, drenching Thomas's worn flannel as he oversaw the bailiffs hauling out their meager belongings onto the muddy curb. Each faded quilt and chipped dish carried echoes of laughter-filled Sundays. Clara waited in the truck's cab, her oxygen tube snaking from a portable tank, one hand clasped around the family Bible like an anchor. It hadn't left her lap since the eviction notice for unpaid taxes landed 2 months prior, a cruel twist after her heart condition had drained their savings. My beautiful family, let's start with a blessing. Dear Lord, I ask you to surround every person watching with peace, healing, and endless love. Amen. You are not just an audience. You are my family, the reason I push through on the hardest days. For those who are new here, welcome to the family. Please subscribe, say hello in the comments, and let's grow closer together. Each story I bring is my sacrifice and devotion. When you walk away early, it feels like my heart is left unheard. Please, stay with me through the journey until the very end. I love you always. Now, let us begin. Their eldest adopted daughter, Evelyn, strode up under a sleek black umbrella, her power suit pristine amid the downpour. Her husband lingered in their luxury sedan, scrolling his phone to dodge the scene. Dad, you can't cling to this place forever. It's unsustainable, Evelyn said, thrusting a folder forward. There's a spot at the Budget Senior Center in town. They'll take you both by month's end. Thomas fixed her with a steady gaze. Senior Center? We're not ready to be warehoused. Mom needs real care for her heart, Evelyn pressed. We can handle it ourselves. The rates are low, and they've got doctors on site. But no personal keepsakes cluttering the rooms. She eyed the Bible in Clara's lap. Thomas's voice wavered. That Bible's held our family prayers for decades. We adopted you all, crossed color lines to give you a home without prejudice. Skipped vacations to fund your business degree, Evelyn. Poured our hearts into dreams that weren't even blood-tied. 40 years in this house, and you'd strip us of our last comforts. It's just a book, Dad, not family, Evelyn huffed. Her husband finally stepped out, shoes squelching in puddles. Thomas, face facts. You're ill, penniless, and honestly, a weight we can't carry anymore. That old tome's just another relic dragging you down. Clara eased herself from the truck, oxygen tank dragging like a chain, her breath labored but her eyes fierce. We gave you everything. Our nest egg for David's loans, our time for Amara's art classes, our love without question of skin or origin. We chose unity over ease, and you won't even let us keep our faith. David approached then, his coat threadbare from his own financial woes, clutching a stack of forms. At 38, their once gentle son had mastered bitter detachment. We've set up aid applications for you. It's the kindest route given the mess. Kindest? Thomas felt a fire ignite within. Not heartbreak alone, but righteous fury. I hammered nails for 40 years to put you through trade school, son. Your mother taught in underfunded classrooms, her strength forged in Mississippi's hardships to nurture dreams across colors. And this is your kindness? A thick quiet descended, pierced only by the rain's drum on roofs and the steady wheeze of Clara's breathing. Evelyn passed Thomas a crumpled map, dotted with age. Grandma's forgotten plot in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's what we can spare. The cabin's there, sort of. The fresh air might ease Mom's heart. Her tone eased for a split second. But really, Dad, that Bible won't shield you from the cold up there. It's ancient, just like. She trailed off, the unspoken barb lingering. Just like you. Thomas's tone turned steel. The Bible comes with us. It's our compass, non-negotiable. The children swapped glances, a mix of irritation and faint release at their token effort. As they peeled away in gleaming vehicles, Thomas unfolded a scribbled note from the map. We'll check in when life settles. P.S. There's a clinic 40 miles out if her heart acts up. Clara's whisper cut through the haze. 50 years wed, for children raised beyond blood or bias, and this is our farewell. The Bible's pages fluttered in the wind, as if whispering back that the tale was far from over. The truck's dim beams cut through the gathering dusk as they wound up twisting roads, hours blurring into a haze of thunder and fleeting recollections, of gospel hymns mingling with carpenters' tales, of a home where love erased lines. Finally, the lights caught a faded marker. Blue Ridge Retreat, EST 1948. Rounding the bend, the truth unfurled. No welcoming village, just tangled wilderness reclaiming forgotten paths, overgrown vines choking old sheds, and at the heart, their supposed haven. A sagging cabin on fractured foundations, roof half collapsed, windows like empty eyes. Lord have mercy, Thomas breathed. The abandonment, already a wound, tore wider as he grasped the full mockery of their children's offering. Clara stepped out slowly, clutching the Bible, and crossed the threshold. Instead of crumbling in defeat, she traced a splintered beam with her fingers, her voice a quiet thunder. "What's it saying to you?" Thomas asked, frost nipping at their words in the chill air. "That it's broken, but breathing," Clara replied. "And smarter than our kids ever gave us credit for." They had $623 left in crumpled bills, preserves for maybe 10 days, Clara's pills dwindling in 2 weeks, and a sack of seeds that felt infinitely precious against the mountain's vast indifference. But even in that shadowed shell, as they huddled by a flickering lantern, memories stirred, of how 2 unlikely souls had first forged their bond, drawing from Oregon's quiet woods and Mississippi's resilient fields to dream of a family unbound by color or convention. Thomas Whitfield had always been a man of few words, his life measured in the steady rhythm of hammer strikes and sawdust clouds. Born in the misty evergreen forests of rural Oregon, he grew up in a drafty farmhouse where his father, a logger with calloused hands and a distant gaze, taught him the trade of building. By 18, Thomas was apprenticing as a carpenter, framing houses for families who laughed and dreamed within walls he raised. Yet, for all the homes he constructed, cozy bungalows with wraparound porches, sturdy cabins nestled against the Pacific winds, he never quite built one that felt like his own. His early marriage to a local girl fizzled after a decade, childless and hollow, leaving him rootless at 45. He wandered job sites, his truck bed cluttered with tools, his evenings spent in a rented room with only the hum of a radio for company. Loneliness clung to him like the damp Oregon fog, a quiet ache that whispered of unfulfilled promises. Clara Jenkins, on the other hand, carried the fire of the South in her veins. Raised in the red clay hills of Mississippi during the turbulent 1950s, She learned early that strength wasn't just in muscles, but in the unyielding spirit. Her mother, a sharecropper's widow, scrubbed floors by day and read scripture by kerosene lamp at night, instilling in Clara a fierce belief in education and kindness as weapons against a world that often saw her skin before her soul. Clara became a schoolteacher at 22, standing before classrooms of wide-eyed children in segregated schools, weaving lessons on arithmetic with tales of Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass. "Kindness ain't weakness," she'd tell her students, her voice rich and melodic, laced with the drawl of cotton fields and gospel choirs. "It's the bridge that crosses any divide." But life tested her resolve. A brief, stormy marriage in her 30s ended in heartbreak, and doctors later delivered the cruel verdict of infertility. By her late 40s, Clara had moved west to Oregon, seeking a fresh start in integrated schools where she could teach without the shadow of Jim Crow. Still, the emptiness lingered, a longing for the laughter of little feet, for a home that echoed with more than her solitary prayers. Their paths crossed on a crisp autumn day in 1985 at a community fair in Portland. Thomas was there volunteering, repairing a sagging booth for the local church. Clara, manning a table of handmade quilts for a school fundraiser, watched him work with quiet admiration. The way his hands moved with precision, coaxing splintered wood back to life. When a sudden rain shower scattered the crowd, Thomas offered her shelter under his tarp, and they fell into easy conversation. He spoke of the houses he'd built, each one a temporary haven for others. She shared stories of her students, how she'd fight for the overlooked ones, teaching them that love could rewrite any story. "I've built walls all my life," Thomas said softly, rain pattering around them, "but never a foundation that held." Clara smiled, her eyes warm. "Foundations start with dreams, Mr. Whitfield. And dreams don't care about color or where you come from." What began as shared coffees turned into long walks along the Willamette River, where they bared their souls. Thomas marveled at Clara's resilience, forged in the fires of Southern adversity. Stories of marching for civil rights, of facing down prejudice with grace. Clara admired Thomas's gentle steadfastness, his ability to see beauty in broken things. They were an unlikely pair. He, a tall, weathered white man with sun-etched lines around his blue eyes. She, a curvaceous black woman with graying curls and a laugh that could chase away storms. Society whispered. Neighbors raised eyebrows at the interracial couple in a time when such unions still turned heads, but they paid it no mind. Love, they decided, was their rebellion. They married quietly in a hillside chapel, vowing to build a life together. Infertility's sting remained, but they dreamed aloud of adoption, of creating a family that mirrored the world's diversity. "We'll make a home where love erases lines," Clara whispered on their wedding night, her head on his chest. Thomas nodded, his heart finally anchoring. A place unbound by blood. The adoption journey began soon after, a path paved with paperwork, home visits, and unyielding hope. Their first was Evelyn, a white infant with fiery red hair, abandoned at a fire station in Seattle. At 3 months old, she arrived in their modest Oregon bungalow, her cries filling the air like a long-awaited symphony. Thomas crafted her a cradle from reclaimed oak, carving delicate vines along the edges. Clara sang lullabies blending Mississippi spirituals with Oregon folk tunes, rocking Evelyn until her tiny fists unclenched. "She's ours," Clara murmured, tears glistening. "No matter the shade." 2 years later came David, a black toddler from a Portland foster home, his gentle eyes hiding scars from a neglectful start. He was quiet at first, clinging to Clara's skirts as she kneaded dough for biscuits infused with southern spices. Collard greens simmered with ham hocks, paired with Thomas's fresh-baked cornbread. Thomas taught him to whittle small animals from pine scraps, their laughter echoing in the workshop. "Family ain't about matching," Thomas told him one evening, as David beamed at his first carved bird. "It's about fitting together." Amara followed, a spirited black girl of 5 from a Mississippi orphanage, Clara's roots calling her back. Creative and bold, she painted murals on their walls with thrift store watercolors, blending African patterns with Pacific Northwest landscapes. Clara encouraged her artistry, mixing lessons on history with hands-on crafts, while Thomas built her an easel that doubled as a fort. Lucas rounded out the quartet, a white boy of 7 adopted from a group home, carefree and adventurous, always dragging siblings into backyard explorations. He idolized Thomas, helping with odd jobs, his small hands learning to sand wood smooth. Their home became a tapestry of cultures, defying the era's norms. Sunday mornings meant pancakes drizzled with maple syrup from Oregon farms, served alongside Clara's gospel hymns, voices rising in amazing grace as sunlight streamed through mismatched curtains. Evenings by the fire crackled with stories. Thomas's tales of lumberjack legends intertwined with Clara's accounts of civil rights heroes, the children wrapped around the hearth. The house brimmed with thrift store treasures, faded quilts from estate sales, art from garage finds, symbols of joy stitched from scraps, not wealth. Meals fused flavors. Clara's gumbo rich with okra and spice, paired with Thomas's smoked salmon from river catches. "This is our heaven," Clara would say, as the family gathered for grace, hands linked in a circle of varied hues. Challenges tested their unity. Neighborhood stares turned to whispers when they attended school events. A white father and black mother with a rainbow of children. "They're not your real family," a classmate once taunted Evelyn, but she shot back, "Love makes us real." Financial strains loomed. Thomas's carpentry jobs ebbed with economic dips. Clara's teaching salary stretched thin for 4 growing mouths. They skipped luxuries, mending clothes and bartering skills. Thomas fixing a neighbor's fence for fresh eggs, Clara tutoring kids for garden produce. Through it all, love transcended. Birthdays celebrated with homemade cakes, holidays with handmade gifts. "Blood don't bind us," Thomas reminded during tough times. "Heart does." Yet, subtle cracks emerged as the children aged. Evelyn's ambition sharpened. At 16, she eyed college catalogs, dismissing their humble life as limiting. David, once gentle, grew resentful during lean months, muttering about what we'll inherit. Amara sketched dreams of Hollywood glamour, her art shifting from family portraits to abstract escapes. Lucas, carefree, began skipping family nights for friends' parties. Clara noticed, her heart twinging like an early warning. "They're finding their wings," she'd tell Thomas, though worry creased her brow. "Pray they don't fly too far." The lantern's flame danced in the cabin's gloom, pulling Thomas and Clara back to the present. Outside, wind howled through the cracked walls, rain seeping in like uninvited tears. Thomas surveyed the damage, splintered beams sagging like weary shoulders, floorboards warped from years of neglect. Clara, oxygen tube hissing softly, traced a finger over the Bible's worn cover, her eyes distant. "Remember those Sundays?" she whispered, voice frail but warm. "Pancakes and hymns. We built something beautiful once." Thomas knelt beside her, his stiff hands clasping hers. "We will again, love. Starting here." As they assessed the ruin, piling debris, patching leaks with what scraps they had, the memories fueled them, a spark against the cold. The cabin, like their family, was broken but breathing, waiting for hands and hearts to mend it. As Thomas pried a rusted nail from a sagging beam, the wood groaning under his grip, another memory surfaced, sharp as the splinter that nicked his thumb. Blood welled up, a tiny red bead in the lantern's glow, but he barely noticed. His mind drifted back to the first signs of fracture, years before the eviction rain had washed away their old life. It had started subtly, like a hairline crack in a foundation, invisible until the weight became too much. Clara's illness crept in during the fall of 2015, a shadow that darkened their once vibrant home. She had always been the family's heartbeat, strong, rhythmic, unyielding. But one crisp morning, as she stirred collard greens on the stove, a sharp pain gripped her chest, stealing her breath. Thomas found her slumped against the counter, her dark skin ashen, hands clutching her blouse. "Just indigestion," she insisted through gritted teeth. But the doctor's visit revealed otherwise. Congestive heart failure, her valves weakened by years of stress and the quiet toll of a life spent giving. Medications followed, pills that rattled in orange bottles, each one a reminder of vulnerability. Bills mounted like autumn leaves, specialist copays, echocardiograms, oxygen tanks when her breathing grew labored. Thomas, retired from full-time carpentry at 68, watched their savings dwindle. His hands, once deft and sure, now stiffened with arthritis, protesting every twist of a screwdriver. He took odd jobs, fixing fences for neighbors, building shelves in garages. But the work was sporadic, his fingers fumbling tools that used to feel like extensions of himself. "We'll manage," he'd tell Clara, forcing a smile as he massaged his knuckles under the kitchen table. But inside, doubt gnawed. How long could they hold the walls together? In the cabin's chill, Clara swept debris into a pile with a broken broom they'd found amid the ruins, her movements slow but deliberate. Dust swirled in the air, catching the light like ghosts of the past. "That pain in my chest," she murmured, as if reading his thoughts. It wasn't just the heart. It was the beginning of the end. Thomas nodded, heaving a rotted plank aside, the thud echoing their shared sorrow. The flashbacks intensified, pulling them deeper into the unraveling. The children's drift began as whispers, then grew to a deafening silence. Evelyn, their ambitious eldest, had climbed the corporate ladder in Seattle, her red hair now styled in sharp bobs, her life a whirlwind of meetings and mergers. Visits home, once monthly rituals of shared meals, tapered to phone calls laced with excuses. "Work's insane, Mom. Deadlines piling up," she'd say, her voice tinny over the line. Clara would nod to the empty room, hiding the ache. "We understand, baby. Just come when you can." But the when stretched into months. Evelyn believed love was proven through achievement, not presence. Her parents' humble bungalow, with its thrift store charm, felt like a relic she outgrew. David, their gentle black son, hardened under the weight of his own disappointments. Once the family's peacemaker, helping Thomas in the workshop with a soft smile, he now drowned in debt from failed investments. A restaurant venture gone sour, loans stacking like unpaid bills. Resentment festered. He saw his parents as having nothing to give, their lack of wealth a barrier to his dreams. "You raised us on love, but love don't pay the rent," he snapped during a rare visit, his eyes avoiding Clara's as she offered him gumbo from her Mississippi recipe book. Thomas tried to bridge the gap, reminding him of the interracial unity they'd forged. "We adopted you across colors, son, built this family on more than money." But David shrugged it off, his departures growing colder. Amara, the creative spark with her black curls and vivid imagination, chased fame to Los Angeles, her art shifting from family-inspired pieces to abstract works that screamed independence. Ashamed of her roots, the modest Oregon home that clashed with Hollywood's glitter, she distanced herself, her calls sporadic and superficial. "I'm auditioning non-stop, Dad. Can't make it back," she'd text, ignoring invitations to holidays where Clara's hymns once filled the air. Lucas, the carefree white youngest, simply vanished into the ether. His adventurous spirit, once channeled into backyard games, led him to drift across jobs and cities, his phone going unanswered. No excuses, just silence, a ghosting that cut deepest, as if their bond had never been. The pleas for help fell into voids. Clara's emails about medical bills, simple requests for a loan or even advice, went unread, their inboxes echoing with digital emptiness. "Just a little something to tide us over," Thomas wrote to Evelyn, his fingers aching on the keyboard. No reply. Holiday invites met, maybe next year. A refrain that stung like rejection. Thanksgiving 2018. The table set for 6, but only 2 plates used, Clara's oxygen hissing as she forced a smile over turkey grown cold. "They're busy building their lives," she'd say, but her eyes betrayed the lie. Societal whispers amplified the pain. Interracial adoptions hailed as progressive, yet elder neglect swept under rugs, especially for families like theirs, where love crossed colors but couldn't bridge generational greed. "We taught them unity," Thomas muttered one night, staring at faded photos on the mantel. "But the world taught them selfishness." The emotional toll carved deep grooves. Clara's health spiraled without support. Nights found her wheezing in bed, Thomas holding her hand as panic attacks mimicked heart failures. "Where are they?" she'd whisper in the dark, tears tracing her cheeks. Thomas's despair was quieter, a man of action reduced to helplessness, his stiff hands useless against the intangible abandonment. He prayed over the Bible, seeking solace in verses that once united their multiracial brood, but doubt crept in. "Did we fail them?" he'd ask Clara, his voice cracking. She shook her head, ever the teacher. "No, love. We gave them wings. It's their choice not to fly home." It culminated on eviction day, the rain a merciless chorus to their downfall. Unpaid taxes, swallowed by medical debts, sealed their fate. Neighbors gathered like mourners, watching Thomas load the rusted pickup with boxes of memories. The Bible, photo albums, a few tools and seeds. Clara stood beside him in her shawl, smiling faintly through the pain, her oxygen tank a faithful shadow. "Where will you go?" a kind-faced woman asked, umbrella tilted against the deluge. Thomas paused, rain streaming down his face, mingling with unshed tears. "Somewhere we can still believe in love." Back in the cabin, the memory jolted Thomas like a live wire. He slammed a hammer against a stubborn nail, the bang reverberating through the empty space. Clara paused her sweeping, leaning on the broom for support. "That day, it broke something in us," she said softly, her grey curls damp from leaks. "But look at us now, clearing this mess." Thomas wiped sweat from his brow, his resolve hardening amid the debris. Flashbacks of the slow breaking fueled a fire within, heightening the pain but igniting purpose. As they piled rotten wood outside, patching walls with scavenged cloth, the hurt transformed into motivation. They drifted, Thomas grunted, heaving a beam. But we won't. This cabin's our new foundation. Clara nodded, her eyes gleaming. And love will mend it, just like before. The wind howled approval, rain easing to a drizzle, as they worked side by side, the ghosts of abandonment spurring them toward rebirth. Dawn broke over the Blue Ridge Mountains like a hesitant promise, pale light filtering through the canopy of ancient oaks and hickories that cloaked the ridges in eternal green. The cabin hunkered in a forgotten hollow, miles from the nearest paved road, where overgrown paths twisted like veins through the underbrush. Thorny blackberries snagging at intruders, wild ferns unfurling in damp shadows. Isolation wrapped the place like a shroud. No hum of traffic, no distant lights at night, just the symphony of nature. Birdsong piercing the mist, the rustle of leaves in the wind, a far-off creek murmuring secrets to the stones. Yet amid the decay, beauty lingered. The mountains' rolling spines etched against the sky, wild rhododendrons blooming in defiant pinks and whites, the air crisp with the scent of pine and earth after rain. It was a land of contrasts, where life clung stubbornly to ruins, much like Thomas and Clara themselves. The cabin itself was a testament to neglect, a skeletal frame of weathered logs that had once been a hunter's retreat in the 1940s, now surrendered to time. No electricity snaked through its walls. Wires long since chewed by rodents dangled uselessly from the ceiling. Plumbing was a myth. Rusty pipes led nowhere, forcing reliance on the elements. The roof sagged in the center, a patchwork of missing shingles that let rain seep through in silvery rivulets, pooling on the dirt floor. Walls splintered in places, gaps wide enough for wind to whistle through, carrying the chill of elevation. Cobwebs draped the corners like forgotten lace, and the single room smelled of mildew and abandonment, a faint undercurrent of animal musk hinting at uninvited guests. Thomas circled the structure that first morning, his boots crunching on fallen leaves, assessing the wreckage with a carpenter's eye. "It's a far cry from our bungalow," he muttered, tracing a crack that ran like a scar down the front wall. Clara, oxygen tanks slung over her shoulder like a soldier's pack, stood in the doorway, or what passed for one, a gaping hole where hinges had rusted away. "But it's ours now," she replied, her voice steady despite the wheeze. "And Mississippi taught me, even cracked clay can grow cotton if you tend it right." Their first days blurred into a rhythm of survival, each task a small act of defiance against the mountain's indifference. Thomas began repairs with what he could scavenge, his stiff hands protesting but obeying. He ventured into the surrounding woods, axe in hand, a relic from their truck's toolbox, chopping fallen branches for bracing. Discarded planks from a nearby abandoned shed, half buried in vines, became his treasure. He dragged them back, splinters embedding in his palms as he nailed them over leaks. "One board at a time," he'd grunt, hammer swinging in arcs that echoed through the hollow. Clara, weak from her heart but fueled by an inner fire drawn from her southern roots, where women like her grandmother had toiled through floods and famines, set to planting. She knelt in the overgrown yard, soil caking her knees, scattering seeds from the sack they'd brought. Wildflower mixes for color, vegetable starters for sustenance. Her fingers, gnarled but gentle, pressed them into the earth, whispering encouragements as if to children. "Grow strong, little ones," she'd say, echoing the lessons she'd taught in Mississippi classrooms, where hope was planted amid hardship. Survival demanded ingenuity. Water came from a stream a quarter-mile down a slippery path, its banks lined with mossy rocks and darting minnows. Thomas fashioned a yoke from branches, balancing buckets that sloshed with each step, his back aching under the load. Clara boiled it over a makeshift stove, a rusted grate propped on stones, fed with kindling they gathered at dusk. Meals were simple: canned beans heated in a dented pot, supplemented by foraged berries that stained their fingers purple. Storms tested them early. A thunderous squall on their third night, wind lashing the cabin like an angry spirit. Rain poured through the roof, soaking their bedding. Thomas braced the walls with his body, while Clara huddled under a tarp, her oxygen hissing amid the roar. "Hold on, love," he called over the gale, his voice at anchor. As lightning cracked the sky, they prayed together, not for rescue or riches, but for their children's hearts. "Lord, soften Evelyn's pride, ease David's burdens," Clara intoned, her words blending with the storm's fury. "Bring Amara home from her wandering, wake Lucas from his silence. Heal them as you heal us." Thomas added his amen, the ritual a balm, reminding them that love's reach extended beyond these splintered walls. Challenges mounted like the peaks around them. Thomas's hands, already betrayed by age, swelled with each nail driven, blisters forming under calluses that no longer protected. He'd paused to flex his fingers, wincing as joints popped, memories of carpentry days flashing, building homes for others while his own family slipped away. Clara's health frayed at the edges. The mountain air helped her breathing some, but exertion brought dizziness, her heart fluttering like a trapped bird. One afternoon, as she bent to plant herbs, a wave of nausea felled her. Thomas rushed to her side, cradling her head. "Rest now," he urged, his Oregon stoicism cracking with fear. Wildlife added peril. A raccoon raided their meager stores one night, scattering cans with bold paws. Thomas chased it off with a branch, heart pounding. Deer grazed too close, their eyes luminous in the twilight, while a distant howl, coyote or wolf, sent shivers through the dark. Moments of doubt crept in like fog. Lying awake under the leaking roof, Thomas whispered, "What if we're fools, Clara? Chasing heaven and hell?" She'd squeeze his hand, drawing from her Mississippi resilience, the unbowed spirit of ancestors who'd faced whips and chains. "Fools build nothing. We build hope. Remember, love, from broken soil comes the harvest." Yet small victories sparked embers of joy. By the end of the first week, the first wildflowers sprouted, tiny green shoots pushing through the yard's neglect, harbingers of color to come. "Look what you've done," Thomas said, kneeling beside Clara as she watered them with stream-dipped hands. She smiled, gray curls framing her face like a crown. "We did it. Like raising our kids, planting seeds in uncertain ground." He fixed the door next, hinging it with wire scavenged from the woods, the satisfying click of it closing a triumph against the wild. Meals grew heartier as herbs took root, Clara infusing soups with lavender and thyme, flavors evoking her southern kitchens where scarcity bred creativity. Tender interactions wove through the toil. Thomas massaging Clara's feet by lantern light, sharing stories of their early days. Clara humming gospel tunes as he worked, her voice a thread of warmth in the cold. "This place is like us," she'd say, broken by betrayal, but breathing. Their vow echoed in every action. "We'll bring it back," symbolizing not just the cabin, but their shattered hearts. In the mountain's embrace, where racial divides meant nothing to the indifferent peaks, Clara's heritage shone. Resilience born of oppression, turning wreckage into sanctuary. As days stretched into a fragile routine, hope bloomed quietly, a testament to love's enduring craft. Months slipped by like the mountain streams, carving subtle changes into the landscape and their lives. By late spring of their first year, the Blue Ridge had shrugged off winter's grip, awakening in a riot of green. Buds unfurled on the hickories, and the air hummed with the buzz of bees drawn to the earliest blooms. Clara's garden, once mere scratches in the earth, took root with a vengeance. The seeds she'd planted, heirloom tomatoes from packets saved from Oregon markets, hardy corn kernels reminiscent of Mississippi fields, fragrant herbs like basil and rosemary, pushed through the soil, their tender shoots defying the rocky terrain. She tended them daily, her hands caked in loam as she weeded with a makeshift hoe fashioned from a branch and wire. Watering came from the stream, carried in buckets that Thomas reinforced with scavenged metal strips. She'd pour it gently, watching droplets sparkle in the sun, murmuring encouragements drawn from her teaching days. "Rise up, darlings," she'd coo, her voice a soft drawl. "Show the world your colors." Wildflowers joined the chorus, daisies and black-eyed Susans spilling over the yard like spilled paint, their petals a mosaic of yellows and whites that evoked the multiracial tapestry of their lost family. Thomas, meanwhile, poured his carpenter's soul into the cabin's bones. His stiff hands, though slower now, rebuilt the walls plank by plank, sealing gaps with mud daub and pine resin harvested from nearby trees. He'd rise at dawn, the mountain mist clinging to his flannel, and select wood from his growing pile. Fallen limbs stripped of bark, smoothed with a plane he'd sharpened on river stones. The process was meticulous, measuring twice with a frayed tape, cutting with a handsaw that sang through the grain, nailing with deliberate strikes that echoed like heartbeats. As the structure strengthened, he added personal flourishes, carvings along the beams, delicate birds in flight and curling leaves, each one a silent tribute to their children. A soaring eagle for Evelyn's ambition, its wings etched with fierce lines, a gentle dove for David's once soft nature, feathers soft as whispers, vibrant blossoms for Amara's creativity, petals unfolding in intricate swirls, and wandering vines for Lucas's carefree spirit, twisting endlessly. "They're with us still," Thomas would say, knife gliding through wood, shavings curling at his feet like forgotten memories. The carvings transformed the cabin from ruin to relic, infusing it with love's quiet symbolism. Daily life settled into a harmonious cadence, woven from necessity and newfound peace. Foraging became their ritual, mornings spent wandering the overgrown paths, Clara's oxygen tank a constant companion as they gathered wild edibles, ramps sprouting in shady groves, their pungent garlic scent filling baskets, blackberries ripening in thorny thickets, juices staining fingers like ink from old letters. Thomas bartered with the rare hikers who stumbled upon their hollow, drawn by faint trails marked on outdated maps. A young couple once traded fresh bread for his mending of a broken backpack strap. An elderly wanderer offered salt in exchange for directions and a listening ear. Evenings brought simple joys under the vast sky, stargazing from the patched porch, where constellations wheeled overhead like silent witnesses. "Look there, the Big Dipper," Clara would point, her head on Thomas's shoulder, the mountain air cool and clean. It eased her breathing, the elevation's purity a balm for her weary heart. Flare-ups grew less frequent, her color returning in rosy hints. In those quiet hours, she'd teach Thomas old hymns from her Mississippi childhood, Spirituals like Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, her voice rising clear and strong, blending with the cricket chorus. He'd hum along, his baritone rough but earnest, the melodies a bridge to comfort. These songs carried my people through darker times, she'd explain, eyes distant. Now they'll carry us. The first visitors arrived unannounced, like gifts from the hills themselves. A local villager, a weathered farmer named Jed from the valley below, appeared one afternoon in early summer, his boots muddied from the trek. "Heard whispers of folks up here," he said, hat in hand, eyeing the blooming garden. Clara welcomed him with a bowl of soup, simmered from foraged greens and herbs, thickened with cornmeal she'd ground by hand. "Sit a spell," she invited, her southern hospitality undimmed by isolation. Thomas, spotting the man's dulled axe, offered to sharpen it on his whetstone, the blade singing back to life under his careful strokes. Jed left with tools renewed and stories shared, promising to return. Word spread subtly, carried on the wind of gossip in the small mountain communities, tales of the kind couple in the hills, an interracial pair who'd turned wilderness into welcome. Hikers followed, a group of birdwatchers pausing for water, repaid with Clara's lavender tea that soothed weary throats, a lone backpacker with a sprained ankle, bandaged by Thomas's steady hands. Each encounter built the emerging sanctuary vibes. The cabin no longer a hideaway, but a nascent haven, its air thick with the scent of blooming lilies and the warmth of shared humanity. Amid the toil, internal growth unfurled like the garden's vines. Reflections on forgiveness surfaced in quiet monologues, often as they worked side by side. One golden afternoon, as Clara thinned tomato vines, pruning suckers with gentle snaps, ensuring the plants focused their energy on fruit, she paused, wiping sweat from her brow. "Thomas, I've been thinking on our children," she said, her voice laced with the resilient timbre of her Mississippi forebears, who forgave chains to build futures. "The bitterness, it's like these weeds. Pull 'em now, or they choke the good." Thomas set down his carving knife, the half-formed leaf in his palm a symbol of their absent ones. "I feel it too, the anger at Evelyn's silence, David's resentment, Amara's shame, Lucas's vanishing. We gave them everything, crossed colors and cultures to make a family. And they left us to rot." His words hung heavy, but Clara reached for his hand, her touch a anchor. "But holding that poison? It only rots us. Forgiveness ain't forgetting. It's letting go so we can grow." She gestured to the garden, where corn stalks reached skyward, tomatoes blushing red. "Like this soil, we turned wreckage into life. Maybe our love will call them back, not our grudges." Thomas nodded, the mountain breeze rustling his white hair. "You're right. We've rebuilt walls, planted roots. Heaven starts here, in the releasing." As seasons shifted, summer's heat yielding to autumn's golden haze, leaves turning fiery reds that mirrored Evelyn's hair, their monologues deepened. Evenings by the fire, now crackling in a stone hearth Thomas had mortared, brought confessions. "I dreamed of David last night," he'd share, voice thick, laughing like he did as a boy. "I woke praying for his heart, not cursing his absence." Clara would add, "And Amara, her art could paint this beauty. I let go of the hurt, send love on the wind." The process was gradual, like the cabin's transformation. Walls solid now, roof sealed against storms, carvings telling stories of loss turned to legacy. Bitterness ebbed, replaced by peace. The sanctuary not just physical, but spiritual. In the hill's embrace, where racial resilience echoed in Clara's hymns and Thomas's crafts, They found renewal, seeds of heaven taking firm root. By the dawn of their second year, the Blue Ridge Mountains had woven the Whitfields' efforts into a tapestry of vibrant life, as if the earth itself conspired to heal their wounds. Winter's frost had retreated, giving way to a lush explosion that transformed the once barren hollow into a living Eden. Clara's garden burst forth with unrestrained abundance. Corn stalks towered like sentinels, their silken tassels swaying in the breeze, ears swelling with golden kernels that promised hearty meals. Tomatoes hung heavy on vines, ruby orbs ripening under the sun's caress, their tangy scent mingling with the soil's earthy musk. Lavender fields. Rose Clara had expanded with cuttings from wild patches, spilled across the hillside in purple waves, their blooms humming with butterflies that danced like flecks of living confetti. Monarchs and swallowtails flitted from petal to petal, wings flashing orange and black, drawn to the nectar as if summoned by Clara's whispered invocations. The air thrummed with vitality, bees droning a constant chorus, while wildflowers, now a riot of lilies in creamy whites and bold pinks, carpeted the slopes, turning the yard into a canvas painted by nature's hand. Seasonal shifts painted the scene anew. Spring's tender greens hardening into summer's deep emeralds, the heat baking the ground until afternoon showers released petrichor, that fresh, cleansing aroma that washed away lingering doubts. Thomas, his hands steadier now from constant use, channeled his energy into expanding the cabin's embrace. He built a wooden porch from felled timbers he'd seasoned over winter, planing each board smooth until it gleamed like polished hope. The structure wrapped the front like open arms, sturdy posts rising to support a slanted roof that shed rain in silvery sheets. Along the railing, he etched more carvings, intertwining vines symbolizing unity across divides, birds midsoar for freedom from past pains. At Clara's suggestion, he crafted a sign from a broad oak slab, his knife dancing to form elegant letters. All who are weary, come in peace. Hung above the door with twine, it swayed gently, a beacon etched with the couple's unyielding faith. "It's more than wood," Thomas said one evening, stepping back to admire it as the sun dipped behind the peaks, gilding the letters in gold. Clara nodded, her grey curls catching the light. "It's our vow made visible, like the family we built, open to all." As the sanctuary blossomed, a community coalesced around it, drawn like moths to the warm glow of the Whitfields' hearth. Visitors multiplied, no longer rare wanderers, but a steady trickle of travelers and lost souls seeking respite in the hills. The cabin earned its whispered name, Heaven's Cabin, a haven where stories unfolded over shared meals, rest came in the shade of the porch, and weary hearts found momentary mending. One early arrival was Maria, a young Latina hiker fleeing a shattered engagement, her backpack sagging with unspoken grief. She stumbled upon the path midsummer, drawn by the lavender's perfume. Clara greeted her with a bowl of fresh tomato soup, simmered with garden herbs and a dash of Mississippi spice, the steam carrying notes of basil and comfort. "Sit, child," Clara urged, her voice a maternal bomb honed from years of teaching across color lines. Thomas mended her torn bootlaces while Maria poured out her tale of love betrayed, dreams deferred. "I feel like I've lost my way," she confessed, tears salting the soup. Clara listened, then shared snippets of their own abandonment, her words weaving themes of chosen family. Blood don't define kin. It's the ones who stay, or return, to mend the breaks. Maria left the next day, lighter, calling back. "Thank you, Mom and Dad," the endearment slipping naturally, filling the void left by their absent children. More came. Elijah, a black veteran haunted by war's shadows, who arrived in autumn as leaves turned crimson flames. He bartered stories for a night's rest on the porch hammock Thomas had woven from vines. Over corn chowder thickened with garden bounty, Elijah spoke of isolation in a world that forgot its heroes. Thomas, drawing from his quiet Oregon roots, fixed the man's rusted canteen, while Clara hummed hymns that echoed Elijah's own southern upbringing. "You're home here," Thomas said simply, his carvings of doves mirroring the peace they offered. Elijah departed with a carved leaf talisman, whispering, "Dad, you've given me wings again." Then there was Sophie, a white artist adrift after losing her studio to debt, her sketchpad clutched like a lifeline. She stayed a week in the fall, helping Clara harvest lavender bundles that scented the air like incense. In transformative interactions, Sophie painted the cabin's evolving beauty, butterflies amid the blooms, while Clara shared tales of Amara's youthful art, bitterness softened into lessons of forgiveness. "Strangers become family when hearts align," Clara reflected one night, as Sophie called her mom in gratitude, the word a salve for the children's silence. Through it all, the couple's bond deepened, a quiet forge where love was tempered stronger. Clara's health stabilized temporarily, the mountain air and purposeful days easing her heart's burden. Flare-ups receded, her steps surer as she tended the garden. Mornings found them sharing coffee brewed over the fire, Thomas's arm around her waist, their interracial union a testament to love's transcendence. "We've built more than a home," he'd murmur, watching butterflies alight on lavender. "We've rebuilt us." Evenings deepened intimacy. Stargazing from the porch, Clara's head on his chest, her hymns blending with his stories, filling the child-shaped voids with strangers' smiles. "They left a hole," Clara admitted once, as fireflies twinkled like earthbound stars. "But these souls, they pour in light." Thomas squeezed her hand, his voice thick. "Chosen family, love. Like the one we made before." Hints of something larger flickered on the horizon, foreshadowing a twist in their quiet rebirth. A passing hiker named Alex, a young travel vlogger with a camera slung around his neck, arrived in late summer, his drone buzzing overhead like a curious bee. Drawn by rumors in the valley, he captured the garden's splendor, the corn swaying, tomatoes gleaming, lavender alive with wings, while Clara offered him rest and soup. "This place is magic," Alex marveled, filming Thomas carving on the porch, the sign's words framing the scene. "The world needs to see it." Clara smiled faintly, unaware of the viral spark, as Alex departed with footage tucked away, promising to share their story online. Little did they know, his lens had captured heaven's essence, poised to summon echoes from the past. 5 years blurred into a symphony of seasons at Heaven's Cabin, the Whitfields' sanctuary a beacon that drew wanderers from afar. The garden had expanded into acres of bounty, the porch a gathering place for tales under starlit skies. Clara's health held steady in the mountain's embrace, her hymns a constant thread, while Thomas's carvings adorned every beam, symbols of enduring love. Strangers filled their days with laughter and gratitude, chosen family mending the scars of blood ties lost. Then, one crisp autumn morning, the world intruded. Alex's video, uploaded on a whim to his modest travel channel, exploded overnight. Titled, "The Couple Who Built Heaven After Being Abandoned," it wove footage of lavender fields alive with butterflies, the golden cabin bathed in sunset, Clara's warm smile as she served soup, Thomas whittling with quiet wisdom. The sign, "All who are weary, come in peace," framed the thumbnail. Views surged, thousands, then millions, shared across social media with captions like "Faith in humanity restored," and "This is what forgiveness looks like." Comments flooded in, stories of elder neglect, interracial love triumphing over betrayal, calls for the Whitfields to be honored. The video's raw authenticity pierced hearts worldwide, summoning the past like a thunderclap. In Seattle's gleaming corporate tower, Evelyn Whitfield stared at her laptop during a board meeting break, the video autoplaying on her feed. The screen filled with her parents' faces, older, weathered, but glowing with a serenity she'd never known. Clara's grey curls crowned with wildflowers, Thomas on the porch carving a bird that mirrored the eagle he'd etched for her ambition years ago. Tears blurred the image. Evelyn, the ambitious executive who'd measured love in promotions and portfolios, felt her polished world crack. "Mom, Dad," she whispered, sobs escaping in the sterile office. Colleagues glanced over, but she couldn't stop. Regret crashed like a wave. The excuses, the senior center papers, dismissing their sacrifices for her climb. "I became the burden," she confessed to her empty desk, packing a bag that night. The drive south began at dawn, interstate miles blurring through rain-slicked windows, her SUV a cocoon of turmoil. Internal confessions tumbled. "I thought success was leaving them behind. But look what they built without me." Suspense built with each mile. Traffic snarls delaying her, a flat tire in the Oregon drizzle forcing a roadside weep. Doubt gnawed. Will they turn me away? Yet the video's pull was magnetic, regret fueling her foot on the accelerator. David Whitfield, unemployed and adrift in a cramped Chicago apartment, scrolled job listings when the video notification pinged. His phone screen lit with the cabin's paradise, cornfields swaying, a pond he'd never seen reflecting azure skies. Shame deeper than his mounting debts twisted in his gut. There were his parents, serene amid strangers who called them Mom and Dad. The gentle boy they'd raised, hardened by resentment over nothing to give, now saw the truth. They'd given everything. Tears streamed as he watched Clara offer soup to a veteran, her kindness undimmed. "I blamed you for my failures," he muttered, fists clenched. Packing his battered truck with what little he owned, he hit the road east, the journey a gauntlet of self-recrimination. Highways stretched endless, storms mirroring his inner tempest, windshield wipers slashing like accusations. You resented their humility, but they turned ruin into this. A breakdown in the Appalachians heightened suspense, engines sputtering on steep climbs, forcing him to push on foot for miles. Internal pleas echoed, "Forgive me for hardening my heart." In her sun-drenched LA studio, Amara Whitfield paused mid-brushstroke, the video popping up on her tablet. Makeup smudged as tears fell, blurring the vibrant fields that outshone her abstract canvases. The cabin, golden and alive, mocked her shame of humble roots. The thrift store art, multiracial meals she'd fled for fame. Clara's rocking chair, Thomas's carvings of blossoms for her creativity. It shattered her. "I painted escapes because I was ashamed," she sobbed, dropping her palette. Regret fueled a frantic pack, sketchbooks, paints tossed into her convertible. The cross-country drive was a haze of desert heat and mountain twists, suspense in every curve. A near miss with a deer, fuel running low in remote stretches. Confessions poured out to the empty passenger seat. "I chased glitter, but they built real beauty." Mom's garden, It's my inspiration reborn. Lucas Whitfield, the youngest, drifting through odd jobs in Denver, saw the video on a bar TV during a slow shift. The paradise unfolded, blooming fields, serene pond fed by a new spring Thomas had diverted. His carefree ghosting, the unanswered calls, crashed against the image of parents surrounded by love. No tears at first, just a gut punch of realization. He packed that night, slinging a duffel into his old Jeep, hitting the road without a word to anyone. The drive east built thriller-like tension. Snowy passes slick with ice, engine roaring up inclines, his mind racing with apologies unspoken. I vanished like a coward. But they're still building heaven. A wrong turn led to hours lost in fog-shrouded trails, heart pounding as dusk fell, suspense peaking when he spotted the faint signpost. They converged on a golden afternoon, vehicles crunching up the winding path one by one. The paradise enveloped them, fields alive with butterflies darting through lavender, corn rustling secrets, the pond a mirror of cloudless sky, the cabin bathed in sunset hues that turned carvings aglow. Visitors lingered on the porch, but sensing the moment, melted away. Thomas sat whittling, Clara in her rocking chair, wildflowers in her hair. The children approached silently. Evelyn first, then David, Amara, Lucas, standing like prodigals before the throne of grace. No words at first, just the wind's whisper and distant bird calls. Eyes met, years of absence bridging in a heartbeat. Lucas broke the silence, voice cracking. "We're sorry." Clara's faint smile bloomed, wisdom in her eyes. "Children, heaven isn't a place you find after dying. It's what you build while you're still alive." The porch held them in suspended emotion, the weight of journeys and regrets hanging thick, the build-up to confrontation cresting in that single, profound truth. Clara's words lingered in the mountain air, a gentle echo that seemed to still the butterflies in the lavender fields and hush the pond's ripples. The children stood frozen, their faces a mosaic of shock and sorrow. Evelyn's corporate poise crumbling, David's hardened edges softening, Amara's artistic facade cracking, Lucas's carefree mask slipping away. Thomas set down his whittling knife, the half-formed leaf trembling in his palm, and rose slowly, his blue eyes meeting each of theirs without accusation. "Come inside," he said quietly, his voice rough from years of mountain winds. "Supper's waiting." As dusk deepened into night, the family gathered under the stars, the porch extending into the yard where Clara had laid a simple table from scavenged planks. The meal drew from the garden she'd nurtured. Corn roasted over an open fire, its kernels popping with sweetness, tomatoes sliced thick and drizzled with herb-infused oil, their juices mingling with the earthy scent of lavender wafting on the breeze. Bowls of wildflower salad, petals and greens foraged that morning, added bursts of color, while fresh bread, bartered from a villager, steamed in the cool air. Lanterns flickered like captured fireflies, casting golden pools that danced across faces long unseen. The sky above was a velvet dome pricked with diamonds, the Milky Way a luminous river overhead, crickets chirping a tentative serenade, as if sensing the fragility of the moment. They ate in tentative silence at first, forks clinking against plates, the sensory symphony of the night enveloping them. The rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, the faint gurgle of the pond. Then, as if a dam broke, stories flowed. Thomas began, his voice steady but laced with the quiet pain of untold years. "We didn't come here to escape you," he said, gazing at the stars. "We came to rebuild what was broken, in the cabin, in ourselves." Clara nodded, her oxygen tube a soft hiss beneath her words. And in praying for your hearts to heal. Evelyn set down her fork, tears glistening in the lantern light. I saw the video, your faces, this place. I wept in my office, surrounded by all the success I chased. I pushed you away because I thought your life was small, our multiracial home, the thrift store joys. But it was me who was small. Her voice cracked, raw and unfiltered. I'm sorry, Mom, Dad, for the excuses, the senior center papers. I measured love in boardrooms, not in the sacrifices you made adopting me, giving me wings across colors. David swallowed hard, his plate untouched, shame etching lines deeper than debt. Unemployed now, scraping by. I resented you for nothing to give. But watching you offer soup to strangers? You gave everything, adopting me when no one else would, blending cultures in our home. I hardened my heart, blamed you for my failures. Forgive me. Tears spilled, mixing with laughter as he recalled childhood whittling sessions with Thomas. I threw away the dove you carved for me. Wish I hadn't. Amara wiped her smudged makeup, the night air cool on her cheeks. In L.A., chasing fame, I was ashamed of our roots, the gospel hymns, the mixed family that defied norms. Your video, it smudged my canvas with truth. I'm sorry for fleeing, for silence on holidays. You turned abandonment into art here, Mom. Your garden's more vibrant than my paintings. Laughter bubbled through her sobs as she described a failed audition, tying it to Clara's stories of Mississippi resilience. You taught me creativity transcends blood, but I forgot. Lucas, the youngest, leaned forward, his voice a whisper at first. I ghosted you, stopped calling, vanished like smoke. The video hit like a punch. You built paradise without me. I'm sorry for the emptiness I left. His apologies deepened into cathartic release, tears flowing freely under the stars. You raised us without color lines, Dad. White like me, black like David and Amara. I took it for granted. Forgiveness flowed like the stream nearby, Clara and Thomas listening with open hearts. We prayed for this, Clara said softly, her hand reaching across the table. Not for apologies, but for healing. Forgiveness isn't erasing the hurt, it's choosing love over it. We let go of bitterness long ago, turned it into this. Thomas added, his eyes misting. You were our heaven once. Now, strangers filled the void, but there's room for you always. Laughter mingled with tears, reminiscing about Sunday pancakes, fireside stories blending Oregon folklore with Mississippi spirituals. Raw dialogues peeled layers. Evelyn confessing corporate loneliness, David admitting debt's isolation, Amara sharing fame's hollowness, Lucas revealing drift's despair. Cathartic scenes unfolded. Hugs under the lantern glow, hands clasped in a circle of varied hues, echoing their childhood graces. The night deepened forgiveness's exploration. Profound, not instant, a mending of bonds frayed by time and choice. Family isn't blood, Clara murmured, stars reflecting in her eyes. It's who rebuilds when hearts fall apart. Months later, as winter's first snow dusted the peaks, Clara's decline came swiftly yet gently. Her heart, weakened but steadfast, began to falter, breaths shallower, steps slower amid the blooming sanctuary that now drew pilgrims from afar. The children, having stayed or visited often, rallied around. Evelyn took leave to cook meals from Clara's recipes. David repaired the porch with Thomas. Amara painted the cabin's beauty. Lucas guided visitors, sharing tales. One serene evening, as fire crackled and hymns filled the air, Clara's heart gave out. She passed peacefully in her rocking chair, surrounded by all. Thomas holding her hand, children encircling like a living wreath. No sorrow in her eyes, only peace, her last whisper. Heaven, we built it. Thomas carved her gravestone with trembling hands, from a stone slab hauled from the stream. Days blurred in quiet labor, his knife etching. Here rests Clara Whitfield, who turned broken things into beauty. Placed overlooking the pond, amid lavender that bloomed eternal, it stood as testament, her legacy in every curve. In the immediate aftermath, grief shrouded the cabin like morning mist. Thomas's sorrow was quiet, a man of few words retreating to his carvings, whittling birds that soared for her spirit. Yet the children committed to change. Evelyn vowed family over career, planning regular visits. David sought therapy for resentment, helping with repairs. Amara incorporated the cabin into her art, exhibitions funding elder aid. Lucas moved nearby, guiding hikers to the haven. "We'll carry her light," they promised, tears mixing with resolve under the stars. The sanctuary endured, Clara's essence in every bloom, forgiveness's climax birthing new bonds. Winter's frost settled gently over the Blue Ridge Mountains, dusting the lavender fields with a crystalline shimmer, as if Clara's spirit had kissed the earth one last time. Thomas Whitfield, now alone in the cabin that had become Heaven's cabin, carried on with a quiet resolve, his white hair catching snowflakes like stars. Yet he was never truly alone. The sanctuary pulsed with life, its doors open to travelers drawn by the viral video, now a beacon in hearts worldwide. Visitors streamed in, no longer just wanderers but pilgrims, families, loners, seekers, bearing gifts of gratitude, baskets of bread from valley bakers, jars of preserves from distant admirers, letters penned in trembling hands that poured out stories of neglect turned to hope. One envelope, postmarked from Ohio, held a note from a woman named Ruth. "Your story saved my marriage. We forgave like you did." Thomas read each one by lantern light, his fingers tracing Clara's gravestone, words etched in his memory. Here rests Clara Whitfield, who turned broken things into beauty. The donations piled in a corner, blankets, seeds, tools, sustaining the haven, each offering a thread in the tapestry of chosen family Clara had woven. The children, transformed by their reunion, channeled their redemption into a lasting legacy. Evelyn, once tethered to Seattle's corporate grind, spearheaded the Clara Foundation for Forgotten Parents, a non-profit to aid abandoned elders. She worked tirelessly from afar, using her business acumen to secure grants, her yearly visits to the cabin marked by planting in her mother's garden. Wildflower seeds scattered in spring, their blooms a riot of color echoing Clara's Mississippi resilience. "This is for you, Mom," she'd whisper, kneeling in the soil, her suit traded for overalls, hands muddy with purpose. David, shedding the weight of debt and resentment, became the foundation's handyman, returning to repair the cabin's roof last summer, hammering shingles under the blazing sun, his labor a quiet apology. "You built us a home, Dad," he said to Thomas, sweat mingling with pride. "I'm keeping it standing." Amara poured her art into The Color of Forgiveness, a series of paintings showcased in galleries from LA to New York, each canvas vibrant with the cabin's fields, pond and porch, colors blending like the multiracial family she'd once shunned. Proceeds funded the foundation, her exhibitions drawing crowds who saw Clara's spirit in every stroke. Lucas, settling nearby in a valley cabin, guided hikers to the hill, his tours weaving tales of his parents' love that transcended blood and betrayal. "This is Heaven's cabin," he'd say, pointing to the ivy-covered haven, where love rebuilds what life breaks. The cabin itself endured, a living monument wrapped in nature's embrace. Ivy climbed its walls, curling around Thomas's carvings, birds and leaves now weathered but vibrant, as if time honored their story. The pond reflected skies of endless hues, its surface alive with dragonflies skimming in lazy arcs. Corn and tomatoes ripened yearly, lavender fields stretched further, butterflies flocking in clouds of orange and black, their wings a silent hymn to Clara's legacy. Symbolic scenes unfolded daily, a sunrise painting the cabin gold, mirroring its first rebirth, a hawk soaring above, echoing the eagle carved for Evelyn, the wind whispering through vines, carrying Lucas's wandering spirit home. Visitors left tokens, stones painted with hearts, notes tucked into crevices, each a testament to the haven's timeless pull. One morning, Thomas found a child's drawing among the offerings, a stick-figure couple labeled Mom and Dad, surrounded by flowers in every shade. He smiled, tucking it beside Clara's gravestone, the act a quiet prayer for all who rebuilt broken hearts. The Clara Foundation grew, its impact rippling beyond the mountains. It funded shelters for neglected elders, provided medical aid for those like Clara, whose illnesses had once drained hope. Volunteers, inspired by the Whitfield story, organized community gardens in urban centers, planting seeds of unity in fractured places. A news article quoted Evelyn, "My parents taught us that family isn't blood, it's who stays to mend the cracks." We're honoring that. David's repairs extended to other forgotten homes, his hands finding purpose in fixing what others discarded. Amara's art inspired workshops for at-risk youth, teaching them to paint through pain, while Lucas's tours became pilgrimages, hikers leaving with renewed faith in love's endurance. The Foundation's work wove the timeless theme of chosen family, echoing Clara and Thomas's interracial adoption. A defiance of divides, a celebration of hearts united by purpose. Thomas, now in his late 70s, moved slower, his hands trembling as he carved by the fire. Grief lingered like a soft shadow, but it was not despair. "Clara's here," he'd murmur, touching the gravestone overlooking the pond, its inscription glowing under moonlight. Visitors kept him company, their stories filling the void. Tales of reconciliation, of elders welcomed back, of love reborn. One evening, a young couple from Atlanta shared soup under the stars, their gratitude a mirror of Clara's hospitality. "You and your wife made us believe in second chances," they said, leaving a quilt stitched with mountain blooms. Thomas nodded, his eyes tracing the constellations Clara loved. "Heaven isn't above us," he thought, echoing her wisdom. "It's the love we refuse to stop giving." Future vignettes painted the cabin's enduring life. Evelyn, graying now, planting in spring, her children helping, learning their grandmother's lessons. David teaching a local boy to hammer straight, passing on Thomas's craft. Amara unveiling a mural at a shelter, the cabin's colors inspiring hope. Lucas guiding a family to the pond, where they scattered petals in Clara's honor. The sanctuary stood firm, ivy thickening, birds nesting in its eaves, the air alive with lavender's scent and the hum of chosen kin. Its legacy whispered in every leaf, every visitor's smile. A moral reflection that heaven lies in unrelenting love, in the family forged not by blood, but by those who rebuild hearts when they fall apart. As Thomas sat on the porch one twilight, the mountains aglow with the last embers of day, he carved a final bird. A sparrow, small but resilient for Clara. The world called their haven heaven on earth, a miracle born from abandonment's ashes. But to Thomas, it was simply their vow kept, a home where love transcended color, blood, and betrayal, its light eternal. When their adopted children turned their backs, everyone said it would break them. But Clara and Thomas Whitfield, with nothing but a rusted truck and an old Bible, built something so breathtaking, so pure, that it became a beacon for the weary. Their story reminds us, heaven isn't a distant promise, it's the love we craft unrelenting, through every storm, in the hearts we choose to call family.